Welcome back to this week's episode of Goonery. Got a big one here with Brandon and myself this week. We're going to be breaking down the entirety of the NFL, give some predictions on divisions, some records, awards, some people and players that people really aren't thinking about, some surprises. But Brandon, first and foremost, happy to hear you're back healthy, fully recovered from COVID. It's not fun. So happy you're doing all right.
Oh, it was hell. I'm not gonna say it was hell, but the thing of being home and not working, making money, it that part sucks. So I'm glad I'm back. I'm healthy 100%, and I'm ready to fucking go.
Happy to hear that. We're going to start out though in the AFC North. I was going through doing some record predictions for the AFC North, and it kind of so as I was doing this, I didn't end up doing it for every division. I ended up doing it for the top two teams in each division at least. But in the AFC North is one of the divisions I did a record prediction for every team. I have it shaken up with Ravens going 12-5, Bengals 9-8, Steelers 7-10, and the Browns 5-12. And I just think Jacoby Brissett is going to be miserable, horrible for the Browns. And yes, Deshaun Watson is a great quarterback. There's no denying it. But I just think they're going to be too far in a hole by the time he comes back. And the back half of that schedule for the Browns, it's not easy. At least, obviously, this is on August 31st. We're saying this. Things can change. Things can change. But I think the Ravens are going to handle and win that division easily. Lamar Jackson's in a contract year, and he wants to get paid. And rightfully so. I think he's going to ball out, and he's going to be right there in the front running for the MVP again this year if he stays healthy.
This is one of the many divisions I have gone back and forth with. Um, you want to talk about an intriguing division for so many different reasons. Like you look at Cincinnati, how are they going to replicate being at least one of the hunted teams
Mm-hmm.
now in the AFC? If you told anybody that the Bengals were going to be the last team standing in the AFC going into last season, people would have been like, okay, no, not really. They have a long way to go. And it turns out they drafted Jamar Chase, T. Higgins improved, and Joe Burrow bounced back perfectly from his ACL. And next thing you know, they're in the AFC Championship game, defeating the Chiefs on the road. So, with that being said, I feel like it will be nothing short of a disappointment if they do not build off of that. I have Cincinnati winning the division, and that's not because I think they're the better team, because I do think Baltimore is the better team. But if history tells me anything about Baltimore, their injury history over the last couple of years have been really, really, really just demoralized their entire team. And it sucks because I think at full potential, seeing Baltimore would you could argue they're the best team in the AFC if they're at full strength. But we just haven't seen that. And that's the part that gives me pause. So looking at the rest of the division, Cleveland, they're going to suffer with not having Deshaun Watson. And you have to deal with Jacoby Brissett. And Kellen Mond is going to be their backup quarterback, which, by the way, there was some
I
lists that said he was going to be better than Justin Fields. Now he's on his second team in his second year. But that's another story for another day. I don't see them doing much this year. They're gonna be too, like you said, they're gonna be too big of a hole to climb out of that. So I see Cleveland being in fourth place. But if there's one team every year that you never want to count out because you'll feel like an idiot counting out, is a team that last year had a broken down Big Ben Roethlisberger, and they made the playoffs. Granted, got beaten by Kansas City, but with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you bring in a mobile guy like Mitchell Trubisky. He may not be the best thrower of the football, but you know you're going to get athletic wise with him. So you always think you're going to have a chance. The offensive line is still not very good, but their defense is very, very stout, and they're going to keep them in a lot of games. And I I am a big believer that a new voice being in your head can make you a better player. With the culture of how Pittsburgh is, I don't see a scenario where Mitchell Trubisky has a bad year. I think he will last a year as a starter, and I honestly will be shocked if he doesn't. But even if it's Kenny Pickett, that's going to be the starter. He's not going to be the starter right away, but if you have him for X amount of games and he learned throughout the entire season, that's going to pay dividends for the Pittsburgh. So while the AFC is stacked, there's definitely a lane for Pittsburgh to make the playoffs.
No, I do agree. Because Pittsburgh was a tough one for me just because of how different that offense is going to look this year. Mitch Trubisky, we've seen what he can do in flashes, and the
Yes.
talent is there. The support has not been there in the past for him. We know that. We've dumped on Matt Nagy for as long as we've been doing this show and that entire relationship. I'm excited to see Mitch there, but then I'm excited to see the rest of their offense looks. To be honest,
Yeah.
you're going to have Chase Claypool without Juju, and I think Claypool's better than Juju, if we're being completely honest. You have
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson. If he can learn how to catch a football, that's a pretty good 1-2 combo at the top. And then you have George Pickens, who realistically should have been a first round pick in the draft, if we're being honest, on talent alone. But
Yeah.
because of character and whatever other issues that people claim to say he has, that has the potential to be as good of a top 3 receiving core of almost any team in the league.
And you didn't even mention Pat Frymuth either.
Or, I mean,
He's gonna
Najee
be a
Harris as
great,
well.
yeah, Najee Harris as well. They're gonna
Najee
be
Harris led all running backs in receptions and targets last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how different that offense looks this year, because I think Mitch is going to try to push the ball down the field a little bit more than Roethlisberger did. Granted, Mitch has never really been a guy to rely on throwing the ball deep, but then again, he never had a quality of receiving core like the Steelers have right now.
yeah.
Yes, he had Allen Robinson, but I'm excited to watch Mitch. I would bet Mitch to win NFL Comeback Player of the Year this year, but the odds for that type of bet for me are not high enough, because a lot of people are on the same page. They think that Mitch is going to have a bounce back year, and rightfully so. I have them at 7 and
Mhm.
10, but I would not be surprised if that record was flipped and they went 10-7.
Mhm.
I would not be surprised whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I This is why, like, because this is the same point you could make for Justin Fields in Chicago. I think even given history, whether it be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, where you have a different voice in your ear, I feel like things are just going to be extremely different. And we don't really think it's a skill thing with Trubisky. I think it was a confidence issue that was completely lost
Yeah.
when he got yanked week 4, week 5 in 2020, because they wanted Nick Foles to be the starter, but
Mhm.
they wanted to be given a reason to bench Trubisky. So I think Trubisky is aware of the situation, that he is a couple of bad games away from being that bridge that he is supposed to be. But I do believe that the voices in there are reassuring him, but also letting him know, you do have to ball out in order to keep your job.
Oh yeah. I do think there's potential for a minimum of 2 teams to come out of the AFC North as well, a
Definitely.
winner and a wild card for sure. But moving on to the AFC East, this division was pretty easy to pick for me, if we're being honest. I mean, it's the Bills' division to lose at this point. I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility for them to go 14-3 this year. Josh Allen is the odds-on MVP favorite for very good reason at this point. And I think the Dolphins are going to come in second in that division, 10-7. I have them pegged at. And I think that that offense is going to be very, very interesting under Mike McDaniel. We kind of talked about it last week on the show briefly when we talked about this year's make or break for Tua.
Yep.
If he does not perform up to, he doesn't even have to be a good quarterback. He has to be as league average as it comes because with the rest of that talent that you have on that offense, you have no excuse anymore. You have Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle, you have Mike Gesicki, who's a pretty solid tight end, and then the running back combination of Raheem Mostert and who am I? The
Chase Edmond.
Chase Edmonds. Yes, thank you. That's a solid 5, 6 weapons right there. They have a decent O line. It's nothing crazy, but I'm very interested. I think that offense is going to look a lot like how San Francisco looked last year, obviously. And I think that the guy that's going to benefit the most from that is going to be Jalen Waddle. I think that Jalen Waddle is more likely to be in that Tyreek Hill role than or Debo Samuel role, excuse me. And
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is that I see Jalen Waddle more as a Debo Samuel type of guy. And I'm excited to watch that team because they have the potential to be a top 5 offense in football this year. I think at least.
I think two is in the same boat as a certain guy that we're going to talk about on the NFC side. That he does not need to be great in order for the Dolphins to make the playoffs.
Mhm.
And you saw it with San Francisco last year. Jimmy Garoppolo was never going to be the reason why the 49ers were going to win. It was going to be the ground game. They was going to rely on speed and their offensive line to be athletic as possible to make the space.
And
And the funny thing about that offense too is that you say Jalen Waddle can play the Debo Samuel role. And the Debo Samuel role was receiving and playing running back. They have that in Jalen Waddle, but they also have that Chase Edmond. And
mhm.
if you really paid attention, when he was in Arizona, Chase Edmonds was probably, I'll say, their second or third most valuable player on offense. If you take away James Conner and DeAndre Hopkins, Chase Edmonds was one of the biggest threats on that offense. Losing him is going to be a very, very, very big deal for Arizona, but a very, very big gain for Mike McDaniel and Miami. So I don't know about Miami making the playoffs. I'm just not sure with how great the quarterback play is in the AFC if his average play is going to win in. His situation is going to be different than a guy I'm going to talk about in the NFC because you have to compete with Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. You have a lot of competition. You have to be better than those guys. And truthfully, I don't know if he can be that. But before we go further into the AFC East, I'm going to warn a certain fan base that has been nothing but spoiled since I've been alive. The New England Patriots are not going to be a good football team this year. I don't see it. We have two guys running an offense. I don't think it's like the two quarterback thing. If
Mhm.
you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. If you have two guys running an offense, especially if it is Joe Judge and Matt Patricia,
Yeah.
your ass is in trouble. Okay, so I want to make sure that people understand that I know Bill Belichick is your coach. You do still have a very good defensive football team. Mac Jones he could get better. I'm not saying he will, but he could get better. But consistency throughout the entire season, it's not going to happen.
Nope.
And it would not shock me that if Zach Wilson takes another step with the New York Jets, that we will see for the very first time in a long time the New England Patriots being a fourth place team.
If I'm being honest, that doesn't even surprise me because that's exactly the order I have this division going in. I didn't bother predicting a record for the Jets and the Patriots because I think they're both gonna be bad. I really do think that both are just gonna be miserable to watch on pretty much all fronts because just looking at the Patriots, when your big offseason moves are signing Jabril Peppers and trading for Devontae Parker, you're not in a good place. And I know everyone always says, "Oh, Belichick does everything for a reason. Belichick is the greatest coach of all time. He's a good general manager. He sees the value in guys that other people don't see." There's a reason Devontae Parker has always been the guy where everyone's like, "Oh, this could be the year he finally breaks out." And Jabril Peppers, you're a Michigan guy, you know this. He has not been good in the NFL, if we're being completely honest.
He's been
Okay.
he's been serviceable. That's the best I can say about Jabril Peppers.
And I think the Jets are actually going to be a relatively fun team to watch. I mean, I think that if Zach Wilson can take that next step forward, you have a young and fun offense with Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson. I mean, it's just like that's a Elijah Moore. That's a fun offense. And they signed CJ Uzama from Cincinnati. And I don't know the last time the Jets have had a serviceable tight end. So
It's been Dustin Keller, I think.
oh my Lord. Talk about a callback.
But yes, you're right. I think I don't see the Jets being as bad if Zach Wilson takes the next step. If Zach Wilson takes the next step, and we saw what he could do at BYU, and he was a very fun quarterback to watch at BYU. And you look at the weapons that he's being given. I watched a good amount of Ohio State games with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson catches everything that comes his way. Like his head is amazing. Route running amazing. Elijah Moore, I mean, just a burner. Corey Davis,
Forgot about Corey Davis. Honestly, top of my head, Corey Davis wasn't even in there. And one of the more underappreciated players in the NFL, I would say. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, it's not very often you're seeing a wide receiver out of Western Michigan go top 10.
That is true.
I mean,
he put up numbers.
I'm not saying that the pieces are completely there, because that offense is going to fail hard together and they are going to learn so much this year. And that's a team who, in my opinion at least, is kind of in a similar spot to where I guess we could kind of say this might be going a little bit of a stretch, but maybe like where the Eagles were last year almost.
Yeah.
Where
I can agree with that.
Where they have the talent there on the offensive side of the football, but you just really don't know what you're going to get from the quarterback position.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
I'm intrigued to see where it goes in that division. I mean, would I be shocked if the Bills won all 6 of their division games? No, absolutely not. And I think they drop. I think they end up dropping 1, and I think it's probably to the Dolphins, because I think Dolphins are going to be tricky, I think, this year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they make the playoffs, but the Dolphins are going to be that team who it's November, they're 500, and you're like, they just put a couple together here. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs.
That's right.
Hey, look, but AFC, I mean, a lot more interesting than the NFC this year, in my opinion.
It's like close.
Yeah, and next division, AFC South. Kind of just want to gloss over this one. This is, in my opinion, the worst division in football.
Yeah.
I mean, winner of this division will probably have 9-10 games tops at the absolute ceiling, and it'll probably be the Colts. I don't know. If I was to guess, I would probably say the Colts going 10-7 or 9-8, with the Titans not far behind them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they finished 8-9 potentially. And then Jaguars and Texans. I mean, the Texans are going to be an absolute dumpster fire. Lovie Smith has been set up to fail there, and I feel horrible. That team is going to be reminiscent of like the 08, 09, 2010 Lions, where you just don't even know who's on the field for the most part.
Colts, I think this is a division to lose.
I agree. I do agree.
What Tennessee, it feels like they are a losing streak away from Malik Willis being the starter. Like they're in that realm right now, and it's not to say they're a bad football team. I do think Derrick Henry will carry them to some wins, but I just can't see them replicating that success that they had for the past couple of years. Now, when you go to Jacksonville's defense is still very suspect. Like they're going to have troubles on that side of the ball. But when you look at the guys that they're trotting out on offense, if Trevor Lawrence And truthfully, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be better this year because you can't get worse than he was last year.
No.
You can't. And a lot of lot of people going to talk about that, but there's a reason for that. But I'm going to talk about it. He was bad last year, but if he's better this year, I think they're definitely going to win more games. They're going to be competitive in most games. But
I
what if
agree.
he takes not one step, but he takes 3 steps? He can make things interesting for the AFC South. Because really, let's be honest, there is no team that's going to sit there. You're going to sit there and say unequivocally they're going to win the division.
Yep.
So that's why I am with Jacksonville. That's also why I am with Houston. I've heard nothing but glossing, like glowing reviews about Davis Mills.
No,
Glowing.
you're right. I mean, you are right because he played well last year considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Mills Mafia, it's real on Twitter at least. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
Texans fans seem to love this guy. And I mean, I guess it's not hard to go from Deshaun Watson, who is now a known sexual predator, to Davis Mills and cheering for Davis Mills. I mean, I guess that kind of makes Davis Mills' job a little bit easier, regardless of how good Deshaun was.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, I know there's football fans that genuinely do not care about what the character is off the field, but considering how things panned out, I'm sure there's Texans fans that don't even remember that Deshaun Watson even played on their team. It's been that long. It feels
You're
like
probably
he's
right.
played for them.
No, you're probably right. And I'm interested to see how a Lovie Smith led team looks in the NFL in 2022. Because being an Illinois graduate, I saw what it looked like at the college level, and it was a fucking disaster. I mean, you did great things for the university. Don't get me wrong. Lovey donated a ton of his salary back to the university. It's back to the football program, rebuilt a lot of their practice facilities on his own dime. Great guy. Not taking anything away from
Yeah.
Lovey Smith, the person. But man, oh man, is he anything other than a defensive coordinator at this point? I don't know. And I kind of feel bad because I feel like he's being sabotaged. But then again, it's the AFC South, and it feels like it's 2015 again, 2016, when
Yeah.
it's just in the doldrums and it was sad.
Yeah.
And that team is getting whoever comes out of the AFC South will be getting curb stomped in the wild card round, if you ask me. But
No arguments there.
yeah, moving on to what is I'm going to say the most interesting division in football this year, and I really don't think anyone is going to argue that. Last year we said it was the NFC West. This year it's the AFC West. I didn't even bother guessing the records in this division because it would be way too hard at this point. The Raiders could win the division. Chargers could win the division. I mean, any team in this division could win it realistically, and I would not be surprised. Chargers is that one team though. I think that everyone has an eye on more so than that this year. Everyone's expecting Herbert to take that MVP leap, and I am a Justin Herbert believer. I think Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But until proven otherwise, it is still the Kansas City Chiefs division to lose, most likely, regardless of losing Tyreek Hill, regardless of everyone else they've lost. You have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback and Andy Reid as your head coach. It's going to be hard for me to pick against you.
You know, I actually thought it was easy to pick this division. I have Kansas City winning. And when you have the best quarterback and the best coach, you are absolutely going, like, you have to be the favorite. And the resume says it proves that. But it's crazy how many avenues this division can go. Let's go down the list. With Las Vegas, I said this from the jump with Josh McDaniels. I think him getting a second opportunity to be a head coach is going to be a blessing. And there is a reason why. He wanted to leave New England. He saw the ship where it was going. It was going down. It wasn't going to go upwards. And having the opportunity to work with Derek Carr, who is, to me, the most underrated quarterback in football.
Mm-hmm.
You pair him with his college teammate, Devontae Adams, which, by the way, at Fresno State, they put up big numbers. And this was always a desire for Devontae Adams to play with Derek Carr. Let's keep that in mind. Like, this is something that they wanted to do since they got into the league. They can win a division. They can make noise. I don't think they can win a division, but they can make a lot of noise. They can absolutely sneak into the wild card. Denver. What? With this point? What was that?
Broncos country?
I'm not. Please. With all due respect to Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson, with the guys that he's going to be throwing the football to, this might be the best crop of receivers he's ever going to have. The best. And the thing about Denver, defense has always been there, no matter if it was Vic Fangio or if it was, I don't know, I think it was John Fox or Gary Kubiak in the last couple of years or whatever. I don't remember too much. But the defense has always been there. Offensively, they've been terrible. I want to say terrible luck at quarterbacks. I think John Elway is a horrible GM, but he happened to strike gold because Russell Wilson wanted to leave. So with that being said, it is very, very easy for some people to say that Denver is going to win the AFC West. Now, granted, I know a lot of people that's going to sit there and say that Russell Wilson is kind of the reason why Seattle was held back a little bit and whatnot. But let's be honest, when Seattle won that championship, it was more of, we'll be all right. We're going to win a couple of more. We're going to get a little relaxed. We're not going to build the offensive line. We're not going to get any more receivers other than DK Metcalf. We saw Doug Baldwin retire, but we really not going to replace him either. That's not the case with Denver. Denver can be a very well-oiled machine if everything goes right and everyone stays healthy. Then there's the Chargers. If there's one glaring thing that was bad about the Chargers last year, their defense was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. So what do? They go out and get Khalil Mack. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a menace on that other side with Joey Bosa. They get the best quarterback in football last year in J.C. Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have Brandon Staley, who was under a lot of scrutiny after last season, and rightly so. He is a defensive-minded coach, and I think he will right the ship. But at the end of the day, with Kansas City, I don't care if they lost Tyreek Hill. You want to know why? Juju Smith-Schuster is in the building. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is in the building. Sky Moore, who can play that role of Tyreek Hill, is in the building. And guess what? Travis Kelce is still the tight end of the football team. They're not going anywhere. They are not going anywhere. I know people are looking for that next big team to knock off the big bad wolf. Granted, Cincinnati did that last year, but people still think Kansas City is going to be back in the AFC Championship, and I tend to agree with that. So this may be the most wide open division, but it's really not the most wide open division. But it's absolutely going to be the most competitive and fun division to watch this year by far.
Yeah, I mean, like the CBS primetime mid-afternoon game every week. It's going to be a ton of fun to watch with whatever team from this division is playing in it. And I mean, off the top of your head, has there been a division with 4 really good quarterbacks like that you can remember anytime in the last 10, 15 years or ever, really?
I mean, no, not even close. Not even close.
No, I mean, I would say like the closest would have been probably last year with Stafford, Kyler Murray, Jimmy G, and Russ. But I mean, I guess maybe if you go back to the NFC South a few years when you had Breeze, Cam Newton, Matt Ryan, and then, well, I guess Tampa was kind of a shit show at that point with Jameis.
Yeah, I think Jameis was the lesser. I think it was either the Jameis days or the Mike Glenn days.
Yeah. All right. Well, no, we can't remember.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited to see how that division shapes out. If you had to pick a representative, in your opinion, to come out of the AFC right now for the Super Bowl. Who are you picking and why? Because I have my pick. I'm curious of yours.
I'm picking Buffalo. Why I'm picking Buffalo is I do think they're going to meet Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. And I think they will be damned if they let what happened happen again this year. And by the way, people forget, 2 years in a row they lost to the same team. I think they will absolutely right the ship this year. And I think it's just a matter of being the hungrier and being the more angry team, especially if they go up against Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying well, actually, I think Buffalo is the better team than Kansas City on
I
paper. I
agree.
think
I
they are
agree.
the best team in the AFC on paper. And you add Von Miller to that defense, could be a game changer. I got Buffalo.
For the sake of conversation, I'm going to take the Ravens to come out of the AFC. If they stay healthy, I wouldn't be surprised to see Lamar Jackson put a second MVP trophy on his shelf. And I mean, Harbaugh is, in my opinion, he's almost as good as it gets as a head coach in the NFL.
Yes.
And you combine that with what's going to be a stronger running game this year with them, a healthy J.K. Dobbins. They're still going to have the plethora of running backs they had last year. You still have Mark Andrews on that offense. I think that it's not outside the realm of possibility either for Lamar Jackson to throw for 4,000 yards and run for 1,200 right there too, with how
Yeah.
angry and inspired he's going to be playing this year, wanting that big money contract. He stays healthy, he wins the MVP this year. So moving into the NFC, we'll start out with the division that means so much to us, the NFC North. It's still the Packers division to lose, whether people want to admit it or not. But I think the Vikings are a lot closer to the Packers this year than they were last year than people want to admit. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Vikings win the division. I think them and the Packers are both going to kind of finish in that 10-7, 11-6, 9-8 range. With the Packers, I think having obviously a higher ceiling, just depending on how that receiving core ends up being with Rodgers. And I mean, come on, they still have Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. It's the Mahomes argument all over again. It's really hard to bet against Aaron Rodgers if he's healthy.
I think it is definitely the Brady effect coming into play. If Brady was the quarterback of the New England Patriots, they was going to win the AFC East every single year. Aaron Rodgers being a quarterback, I know his receivers are lesser this year. I know for a fact that there's going to be some struggles. And I know there's going to be some chatter when Minnesota beats them week 1.
Yep.
There's going to be some chatter. But I guarantee you, 2 things are going to happen. Aaron Rodgers is going to show us why he is the most talented quarterback we've ever seen. But also, Kirk Cousins is going to show why he's never going to be that guy too. I have no faith in Kirk Cousins. I do not think he's going to take that next step. And
at what point though do people stop saying Kirk Cousins is going to take that next step? Because what year did Kirk?
Enough. How old is he now?
I was about to say, what year did he get drafted? Because I bet he is every bit of 35 or 36. Hold on, I'm going to look it up. 34. Kirk Cousins is 34. So he's past the point of he is well past the point of taking that next step. Don't get me wrong. He is better than people give him credit for.
Yes.
Like he is much better than people give him credit for. I know Pro Bowls don't mean shit, but he's made 3 Pro Bowls at this point. And this Vikings offense is going to be really good though this year, I think. Because
they're Justin Jefferson, man.
Justin Jefferson is going to put up numbers that shatter Cooper Kupp from last year, I think. In this Kevin O'Connell offense, do not be surprised if Justin Jefferson creeps up near 2,000 yards.
Ooh. Wow. Bad news for us.
I know that might be a spicy take, but people just I know everyone knows how good Justin Jefferson is, but I still don't think people understand how much of a generational talent he really has been, because he has made Odell's first 2 years look kind of
Pedestrian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, last year, I think he averaged 8, 9 catches a game, right under 100 yards. I mean, he's special, man. And then you combine
Special.
that with Adam Thielen, who still really good. People kind of forget about him at times, I feel like.
Yep.
And then when healthy, I know he's never played more than 14 games in a year. Dalvin Cook's a top 3, 4 running back in the NFL. He's a
Yo,
legit bell
he's
cow when he's healthy. And when they're not, they have Alexander Madison, who has shown time and time again when he's healthy that he's good. He can play.
yeah.
And it's those two are the for sure two front runners, in my opinion, in the division. I think we both agree on that. And then America's sweetheart, currently the Lions. I don't know what to expect with the Lions because last year they were about as scrappy comes. I mean, they were the worst best team, or the best worst team I've seen in quite some time. And those guys, just from watching Hard Knocks, they really do love Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
And people doubted that hiring, but I wouldn't be surprised if I mean, granted, they have not won shit yet. They have not won a thing yet, but he's building a culture there. And I would not be surprised to see them make the playoffs within the next 2 years, 2, 3 years.
I do think that the Detroit Lions are going to have somewhat of a hot start to the season. They're going to trick people. They're going to trick people. And you know what? It may not be tricking because this could be one of those things that they can build towards having a better year next year. But the Lions are going to be a very this is not going to be one of those seasons where you see Detroit on your schedule and you said, that's a win. No, not this
you're
year.
right.
Not this year. They're going to get better. Jameis Winston is going to eventually come back. They have DJ Chark. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's going to be
St. Brown is
really
a
good
monster this year.
He's going to be really good. And people better be careful. And you have DeAndre Swift, probably one of the most underrated backs in the league.
He's a guy who, I know fantasy football doesn't matter in real life, but that's a guy who I am trying to get ownership of as much as I can.
I tried it last year, and he didn't. He did okay. I don't know if I'm trusting him again this year, but if I do, I just want to be healthy. That's all.
But looking at the Lions' schedule, like you said, coming out to a hot start. Week 1 at home against the Eagles. I don't think that's going to go well for them. If we're being, I don't.
It's going to be competitive, but I don't think they're going to win that game.
Okay, but then at home against Washington, that's going to be a win.
Winnable.
At Minnesota, I mean, yes, in theory, winnable, but do I think they'll win it? No. Week 4 versus Seattle at home. Realistically, they're going to start 2-2 at New England on the road. Wouldn't be surprised to see them take a win there. Cowboys on the road. Wouldn't be surprised there either because I don't think the Cowboys are going to be any good this year.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Yeah. But I mean, then just to wrap up the NFC North, we have our Bears. I mean, if you're listening to the show, you know our thoughts. We think the Bears are going to be better than people think. I was very happy with the third preseason game against the Browns. I mean, Justin Fields looked as good as I've seen him look in a professional football game. I know it's a preseason, but still, you're playing against other professionals. End of the day, I don't care who's on the field. All those guys are there for a reason. Do I think the Bears win more than 6 games? Probably not. No, but six games winning. If they win 6 games this year, that means Justin Fields played really fucking well. And I know that's crazy to say. I understand that. But God, teams in the North and the NFC in general have to be shitting their pants seeing how Ryan Poles has been operating this offseason and then seeing how much cap room that they have next year. Because if you're not part of what his vision is for the future, granted, do we know his vision is going to work? No, we don't. But when you have that much money to play with, it's hard to at least not hit on some of them.
And here's the thing, too. There's a very big youth movement going on with Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
The Chicago Bears had 11 picks in this past year's draft. 10 of them made the roster. They released the one guy today, Zachary Thomas, who I was wrong about because I thought he's going to be the guy that stick on that offensive line going forward. I have picked up on something. that Justin Fields looked very much more instinctive in the pocket. He threw the ball very, very well. But if that offensive line hangs on for, because granted, this is a young offensive line. They're young, and unfortunately, without Lucas Patrick for all the preseason, they still need to gel like as a group.
Mm-hmm.
But if that offensive line hangs up like it was, Darnell Mooney can get open. Bayless Jones is his route running is going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Equinemius St. Brown is a guy who can go up and get the football. And one thing I learned on Saturday, Dante Pettis can run some damn routes.
Yes.
He can run some routes, boy. I mean, good Lord. He has the potential to really, really stick in this offense.
He's another guy who I just never understood how he didn't catch on in San Francisco.
Never understood it. I want to say it was injuries, but I mean, that will have to be
the
the only
talent's
thing.
always been there. And with where the Bears are at currently in their quote unquote rebuild, those are the exact type of guys you got to go after.
Absolutely.
Dante Pettis, N'Keal Harry, like we saw them go out and trade for this offseason. And then, I mean, hell, what's his name from the Raiders that they just claimed today? That's the offensive lineman, their first round pick from last year.
Alex Leatherwood.
Yes. He's a first round talent at the end of the day. Maybe it didn't work out for him in Oakland. Who says he
was out of position? That's the worst part.
Yeah. And I also, speaking of offensive line, we talked about how we didn't want to see Tevin Jenkins go anywhere, and we wanted to see how he would fare as the guard. This regime and staff has just been raving about him as a guard, and that just makes me so excited for this running game because he, in my opinion, if he can stay healthy and stay at guard, he's going to be one of the best guards in football with his run blocking ability. He's a mauler.
It is crazy to me that after Michael Schofield got released, that people are still talking about him getting traded. Who's replacing him? Who?
Mm-hmm.
Who had offensive? Yo, you replaced the guy, like you released the guy that you thought was going to be your starter.
Yep.
Who are you going to replace Tevin Jenkins with? That was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. And I'm so glad that we were right. We were right that if Tevin Jenkins can find a place on this line will get better. I don't care if it's at a tackle position. I don't care if it's at a guard position. They were going to get better. And look, the results are already there.
Yeah, and we're not real. This show we're not really often. We're not right a lot of the time. So we're gonna take that Tevin Jenkins take, and we are gonna run with that for as long as we can, and that's okay by me. But I think 6 wins is the ceiling for the Bears, and if they get that, I'll be happy. But if Justin Fields looks good and they win 3 games, I'll also be happy. I have absolutely zero expectations, and I just want to see Justin Fields look good. All it comes down to. But now moving into the NFC East. I have Eagles winning the division. It's their division to lose, in my opinion, with the additions that they've made with the likes of A.J. Brown. Gave Jalen Hurts a real wide receiver to throw the football to. I think Jalen Hurts is going to take a couple steps forward this year. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. And then other than that, in that division, it's just a pile of shit because Cowboys are not going to be good. Mike McCarthy will be fired this year. I guarantee it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jerry Jones down on the sidelines with the headset on himself. After that, I mean, you have the Commanders and the Giants who, God, I love Ron Rivera, great football coach, but that Commanders team just, they're going to be scrappy. But end of the day, you have Carson Wentz as quarterback. I don't ever think Carson Wentz in the year 2022 is going to lead a winning football team. Sorry. I don't think he is. And the Giants, I mean, we kind of touched on the Giants last week. They're going to be a bottom 3 or 4 team in football, most likely.
The Eagles will go as far as Jalen Hurts will take them. I think the Eagles will have a top 5 defense in football this year. They're going to be nasty. They got Gardner Johnson via trade. That was a big position they had to fill. But when you talk about the offense, Jalen Hurts, and this is not the guy that I was referring to, who doesn't need to be great.
I knew that's who you were referring to. I knew
He's
I
not
knew
the
it.
guy. He's not the guy, but he's one of the guys that
Okay.
does not need to be great in order to go far. Because if you really look at it, the NFC is so wide open that if Jalen Hurts puts up big numbers, the Eagles could easily be Super Bowl contenders.
Easily.
That's how talented their roster is. And when you look at the rest of the division, the Cowboys, I feel like they'll be one of those teams that'll give teams fights and they'll stick around, but they're ultimately not going to be good enough to hang with the big boys. And this, to me, as unfair as this is going to be, it's going to be Dak Prescott's biggest year yet. Because you now have one guy that you could say is a star wide receiver. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. You don't have a number two. James Washington is recovering from injury. You have Jalen Tolbert, who you drafted. Who knows how he's going to work out? And then if you ask me to name any other wide receiver for the Cowboys, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I can't do that.
No, me either.
So that's a problem. Offensive line. Tyron Smith just got
Towards
hurt.
ACL. Did you see who's down there for a visit today?
The guy, this is how you know. This is how you know your offensive line is going to be in the shitter. When Jason Peters comes in for a visit, that's how you know. So they're in trouble. Defensively, I have no worries about them. Zero.
No, me either.
I think Trayvon Diggs better get he better get better. He's got to be better than last year.
Yeah.
I know he had the interceptions and whatnot, but all I've seen him on a roasted. I see him as barbecue chicken getting roasted on a little stick. So they gotta get better in that regard. The Commanders, I think, are going to be better if Carson Wentz is not their quarterback. The defense is there. The defense is there. Offensively, they have Terry McLaurin. They drafted Jahan Dotson. Running back wise, Brian Robinson, praise out to him. I hope he gets better because he's going to be the number one running back, but they still have both J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson. I think they'll be fine regardless. But if Sam Howell is that quarterback of that team, I'm telling you, they will be better than people think. I don't know. I know he's a rookie quarterback. I know he wasn't drafted that high. But you can't sell me on Taylor Heineke. You cannot sell me on Carson Wentz. You can sell me on Sam Howell. He has the highest ceiling of any of those quarterbacks. So, that being said, if they finish second in the division, I won't be surprised. The Giants have Daniel Jones as their quarterback. I think just off of that, they won't hit their ceilings. I think their ceiling is higher than people think. But Daniel Jones is the quarterback. You can't reach that ceiling. And I think if they're going to win games this year, it's going to be through their defense. They have Wink Martindale as their defensive coordinator. I think they'll be exponentially better in that regard because of him. So offensively is where they're going to have to really pick it up. Defensively, I have no worries about them.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, I want to kind of circle back to this. You had mentioned the three quarterbacks on the Commanders. If I'm being completely honest, if I was trying to win football games right now with that team, Carson Wentz would be the third quarterback I'm starting. As crazy as that sounds, I'm starting Taylor Heineke out of anyone on that roster right now. I don't think he is the best on that roster, but I think he gives them the best chance to win right now because he's not going to be out there afraid. Carson Wentz has played afraid the last few years. If we're being honest, since he hurt his knees, he has played afraid, and we've seen what Heineke can do in doses. He has his burst where he looks like he could be a franchise quarterback, but then he has his burst where that he was in the XFL before he got signed by the Commanders, considering college. I've been a big Sam Howell guy for a long time. The entirety of this show, I have been banging the drum for Sam Howell that he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. He's a more athletic Baker Mayfield. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. I think it's actually likely he'll end up starting games for them this year. And If he does, I don't think that's a good thing for the Commanders, though. If we're being completely honest, I think that means that Carson Wentz has just been even worse than we saw coming,
Yeah.
and they're just on to next year at that point. But it's the Eagles' division to lose. I would not be surprised if they come out of the NFC, but that all hinges upon quarterback play from Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
So moving into the NFC South. I mean, it's the Buccaneers division. There's not much else to say there. I just think it's going to be interesting to see how the Saints look with a full season of Jameis Winston. Because Jameis Winston, before getting hurt last year, was he throwing for as many yards and as many touchdowns as you would in Tampa? No. Jameis Winston got his LASIK eye surgery. He's throwing less interceptions. He's throwing more accurately, throwing more intermediate passes. It's going to work out pretty good with the combination of Mike Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara. I mean, they have Mark Ingram there too again. That offense is going to be a lot better than people think. I think it's likely that they make a wild card, if we're being completely honest.
There he is. That's the guy I was talking about. Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is probably in one of the best situations you could possibly have for a guy who is an average to above average quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You have all the weapons at your disposal, and then Mike Thomas is back. You drafted Chris Olave, who to me, he gonna have some hardware this year, if you ask me.
Mm.
Defensively, they took a step back, losing Gardner Johnson, but I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. And Dennis Allen, he knows how to coach up a defense. He's been doing it for the past couple of years with New Orleans. I think they'll be just fine. If Jameis Winston is just okay, well, not just okay, but if he's above average, this team are going to shock some people.
Yep.
If he could just be okay, if he could just be just good enough, I would not be surprised if they make a run to the NFC Championship game. And this is a byproduct of how weak the NFC South is, but also it is also a byproduct of how we don't think Tom Brady's all the way locked in. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
and Tom Brady is going to perform. Look at first of all, if he didn't have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Julio Jones at his disposal, I'd have been like, they're gonna have a down year. Granted, he doesn't have his security blanket in Rob Gronkowski for the time being, but
in the big three.
Yeah. But I will say this: Tampa Bay better be careful because New Orleans is going to be way better than people think, and if they're not careful, I think New Orleans can absolutely win a division this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility either. And I'm pretty sure you're aware of this. I have always been a Jameis Winston truther.
Yeah.
I mean, first bet I ever placed in my life was Jameis Winston to win the MVP, and this was way back in the day on like Bovada as like a 16-year-old with my debit card from my first job. And I obviously didn't fucking win, but to this day I'll throw a couple bucks on him every single year to win the MVP for shits and giggles. And I have a bet with one of my friends, one of my best friends. I have a bet with him that if Jameis Winston ever wins an MVP, this is ever. If there's nothing happens to me if I lose, he will get on his ass a Jameis Winston tattoo of him eating a W.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
For his sake, I think I'm actually rooting against him winning an MVP. That's actually kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he agreed to that, but he did. And I will hold that over his head if he ever does it, because Jameis can be special. And he's also, I mean, might be the funniest, most unintentional funny.
Oh, 1,000%.
I mean, did you see the video from the preseason game the other day? I forgot.
He was ad-libbing.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I love it. Sure. Like, after every word, it sounded like it reminded me of that kid playing football growing up that everyone hated on the team because you're like, dude, shut up. You're trying to suck off the coach. But Jameis, literally, that's him. That's him. He's just a lovable idiot.
Yeah,
And
honestly, he's like I know Marshawn Lynch was like he had comedic chops, but like him and Winston are just like the funniest dudes to me, like by far.
and nothing will ever top last year when the game Jameis tore his ACL and ended up on crutches and they won the game. And they're in the locker room. They cut him with the crutches doing it on one leg.
And the funniest thing is like when I saw that, I was like, okay, maybe just maybe he did it to his ACL. And then it turns out he actually tore his fucking ACL. I'm like, this dude is fucking nuts. Like sit your ass down.
Oh my god. All right. So there we go. We're both Saints guys, clearly, at this point in time. Then to wrap things up here, we're gonna go out west. I mean, that's the Rams division to lose again. And I don't even think it's close. Something to watch is Stafford having tendonitis in his elbow that they've announced. That matters. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, NFL quarterback. I mean, I was a below average high school baseball player, and as someone who had tendonitis in their throwing elbow, it fucks you. And I that's something that I would keep an eye on. I don't know who can challenge them in that division because I'm not expecting anything out of I'm not expecting a thing out of the 49ers this year. I don't know about you. I mean, that all hinges upon Trey Lance. So I just have no expectations for Trey Lance because they clearly don't have faith in him if they kept Jimmy G around on that restructured deal.
I said the same thing. And you know what? I do think it will take time for Trey Lance. And that's why, I don't want to make this about the Bears, but that's why the Bears could easily steal week one. I truly believe that Trey Lance is going to have a pretty big learning curve in the NFL. And the 49ers know that. They know that. So that's why Jimmy G is going to be the backup quarterback. And if we see him this year, would I be surprised? Probably not. But Arizona is a very interesting team. It's because we know they are a very talented football team. They are going to be without DeAndre Hopkins for a little bit, but this is going to be a very, very big year for Kyler Murray. If Kyler Murray don't perform this year, I think this is the last time we see Kyler Murray in a Cardinal uniform. And I really do believe that I know they gave him a new contract, but if they could find a way to move him, because he is not followed up on the things that they were expecting of him, I won't be surprised if they'll find a way to get him out. And then there's the rest of the division. Did I say? I mean, Seattle might be picking number one.
When Geno Smith is your starting quarterback, you know that your franchise is going down a deep, dark path.
And the fact that Drew Lock couldn't beat him out is very, very, very not good. Not good at all.
Yeah, no, you are. You are correct. I mean, I've never been a Drew Lock guy. I never thought he was going to be any good. And that just adds to the long list of guys that John Elway ended up whiffing on. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see a retirement from Pete Carroll after this year either.
Oh yeah, it's time. It's time.
It was time about 5 years ago, if we're being completely honest.
Ooh,
in my opinion, I mean, the guys clearly love playing for him, but it's time for him. I mean, we'll get into it. People managing and coaching way longer than they should to wrap up the show, but that's just one of those guys. Go enjoy your life, man. Like, just go enjoy it. You've done pretty much all you can do. Probably a Hall of Famer. Probably.
I don't know.
Close enough where he'll be in the.
I think he'll be close, but I don't know. I don't know. That's something to think about.
Yeah. So then to wrap up the NFC, I mean, at the moment, I have the Buccaneers coming out just because until proven otherwise, I Well, I mean, I guess the Rams proved otherwise last year, but I think it's the Buccaneers coming out of the NFC this year. And then I think this will be absolutely Brady's last year. Because to be honest, I think he only came back because the news was broken that he was retiring by someone other than him. And that's why he's
Yeah.
back.
Oh man, this was very hard for me. Because I'm not moved by any team in the NFC at all.
Me either.
This is one of those years where I'm just like, damn, this is a really crappy year to pick from the NFC. What I do know is that I like to go out on a limb with these predictions. And I think I'm going to do that again this year.
Okay.
I'm going to pick the New Orleans Saints to represent the NFC.
Woo-hoo!
I'm going to pick the New Orleans Saints if Jameis Winston stays healthy. If this entire team stays healthy, they're going to be a hard team to beat. Tom Brady could barely beat New Orleans. In his time in Tampa Bay, he's beaten New Orleans once. It was in the playoffs. He's only beaten them once. Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay, I'm tired of picking them every year to take that next step. And this won't be the year I will do that because of what they have at receiver. But I do reserve the right to change that if Odell Beckham Jr. becomes a Green Bay Packer. So we're gonna check back to that. And I was very close to picking the Eagles, but I just can't pick a good faith pick them if Jalen Hurts is their quarterback. So I'm rolling with the Saints.
Okay. I'm a big fan of that because that bodes well for me with my Jameis Winston truthing. And I would be very happy with that because it's there. The potential is absolutely there for them to do that. And I have this written down. So we will be able to check back in on this at the end of the year. If you had to make an MVP selection for this year, who are you picking and why? I already kind of went into why I would be picking Lamar Jackson, but would just like to hear your thoughts.
Josh Allen's going to go berserk on the league this year. It's going to be damn near record-breaking type stuff.
Okay.
I think Josh Allen is going to win the MVP and win the Super Bowl in the same year and solidify his Super Bowl status, his superstar status.
I'm a fan. I mean, he's the favorite for a reason, and rightfully so. Then it's going to wrap up our NFL talk for right now. But I just want to kind of touch on this. We've talked about it all baseball season. As a White Sox fan, I've talked about my misery with Tony LaRussa. Last night, he was at the game during pregame about an hour before first pitch. Report comes out that due to medical reasons, Tony will be not managing the White Sox for the foreseeable future, and he is out indefinitely. And now he has flown back to Arizona to be with his personal physicians for testing. This just screams, you need to retire so we don't fire you from the White Sox because Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't want to fire Tony again. I'm numb at this point. The Sox are below 500. They suck. And I've moved on to next year already. My tone will change if they somehow rip off 10 in a row, but they won't. They won't. The season's over. And this is how the rebuild is going to be remembered. It's Tony LaRussa medically retiring, and it sucks. But hey, what can you do?
Someone needs to get in Tony's ear, and someone needs to get in Jerry's ear. I don't want to see someone in the dugout suddenly can't breathe anymore. Okay.
I mean, no, you're correct. If he's actually ill, which I mean, he's 77 years old, get him out of there. No one his age should be in a major league dugout anyways.
Not a chance. And you know what? You owe it to your fans to not have the game being paused for over an hour because they're trying to resuscitate a 78-year-old man at that point if you don't force him to retire. So please, for the sake of the men, women, and children who are going to be in attendance, if that were to happen, to force them to retire, start over, and hopefully have a better year. And truthfully, I do think if Tony LaRussa is not the manager of the White Sox, things will be better. So, if you want to stay with mediocrity, go right ahead. If you want to see the man die in the club in the dugout, go right ahead. But I don't want to see it.
Yeah, and it's only a matter of time till actual change comes with the White Sox because the Reinsdorf family has very publicly stated that once old Jerry croaks, they're selling the White Sox and keeping the Bulls. So I'm not wishing death upon anyone, but brighter days are ahead indeed for White Sox fans. But
That's the best way to say it.
yep. With that being said, that's gonna wrap up this week's episode of Goonery. Thank you. Made it this far. Let us know your NFL predictions. Hit us on Twitter. Our Twitters will be in the description for the video and the podcast. Comment on the video. Love to hear from you guys. But with that being said, we will see you next week, and thank you for listening.